So we're going on now to section 3, and section 3 of this presentation is about managing your mental health, your individual responsibility. So as an individual, you play a key role in managing your mental health, and in this section I'm going to look at managing stress. We're going to look at the problem-solving approach to managing stress. I will be just touching on stress here. We have a full webcast and a presentation that you can access on our CSEAS website on stress. We also have an information booklet called Understanding Stress and leaflets on stress if you want to find a little bit more, but I'll be talking about the problem-solving approach to stress here. I'm also going to talk to you about dealing with conflict. We'll touch a little bit on personality types, then I'll go on to talk about self-esteem, healthy eating, exercise and sleep. Okay? So going on to stress. There are many definitions out there about stress, but common to all is the acknowledgement that stress is our response to our own personal experience of pressure in our lives. Now, stress can be most effectively dealt with by using your logic and common sense to reason out a situation and not being swept away in panic and despair. And I'll be giving you a personal example later on about how maybe I was swept away in panic and despair initially in a particular situation. Okay. And here we're talking about stressors. And stressors are triggers which have the potential to cause somebody to respond with stress. And we all have our own individual triggers. An example, giving my friend Jim earlier on, I talked to him talked about his anxiety. Well, maybe a trigger for Jim might be giving a presentation to 200 people. But for somebody else, they might enjoy the opportunity of giving that speech or that talk to 200 people. Now, as I said to you, I'm going to use, this is what a problem-solving approach looks like. So I'm going to give you a personal example here. A situation that happened myself recently is I locked the keys of my car in the boot of my car. Now, no one is to reason why it happened, but it happened. Okay? And what I did immediately was, well, what do you think I did? Well, I panicked. Okay? But then my logic and common sense came into play, and I explored the idea. I went to step 2 there. Well, what am I going to do about this? So I had a spare set of keys. I selected the best idea. I tested it. And anyway, the set of keys, I tested them. They didn't work in the car. The lock had already been damaged. So I had to go back. I was back again. My problem was still the same. My keys were in the boot of the car. And what I did then was I rang the garage. But unfortunately the garage had gone into liquidation and they had destroyed all the keys. So again, back still at my problem, my keys were in the boot. So what I did, the third thing I did then was I had insurance with a breakdown company. I rang the breakdown company and they said they would come out, but that they would have to break open the door of my car and I'd have to sign a disclaimer in case there was any damage. I wasn't that keen on that option. So I said, well, you know what, I'll ring a locksmith. So I rang a locksmith. And the locksmith gave me a very good quote, and he came out and he was able to open the boot of my car and get my keys out for me. So as civil servants, we're doing this every day. Okay, we come up with a problem, and maybe immediately our immediate reaction may be to panic, but our logic and common sense does come into play. So you can see that problem-solving loop. For me, the problem was my keys were in the boot of my car. I explored what was I going to do about it. I had a few options. I selected them and I tested them, and I chose the one that suited me best, the one that worked. So that's just an example of the problem-solving approach to managing stress. Now I'm going on to deal with conflict. And how do we deal with conflict? Well, many of us might just do this. We might ignore it or avoid it, maybe hope that it'll go away. Okay? We sometimes can turn a blind eye. Or we can get stuck right in, have that reactive approach, no thought, and just explode. Or you can see here there's competitions between teams, and this in itself can lead to conflict, people not pulling together. And then we have internal conflict, not knowing exactly what to do about a situation. How can we manage that conflict? And you can see here we have conflict at meetings, where disagreements arise, and as you can see here, not everybody wants to take time to reach an agreement, and as you can see, nobody is listening. So here we have these two characters. They're ready to lock horns. There's a bit of an impasse here, aren't they? So what sort of things might help? So we have some tips here on managing conflict. I wonder what sort of things might help with these two characters. Conflict is a major source of stress in people's lives, and so it's important, if you're involved in conflict, to keep calm and don't react. Think about it. You see two people fighting. What do you remember? The raised voices? Maybe the way their bodies are so threatening, or their aggressive behavior? Okay? So it's very important in conflict to keep calm and don't react, and don't let it become all about the reaction and not about what the content. Okay? So take a breath and think, and notice your voice. Be aware of your emotions, anger, frustration and hurt. And don't let that focus, as I said, be about your reaction, and avoid an audience. It's also important to consult with others and seek advice. And if you're dealing with conflict, we do recommend one-to-one meetings, okay? And also to have a follow-up. Follow-ups are very, very important. You may be already aware of this, but the Civil Service Employee Assistance Service has a panel of trained mediators that are available to deal with people who find themselves in a situation of conflict. Okay? And you can access this service by contacting your local human resources. And also to remind you that the Civil Service Employee Assistance Service, we have some leaflets on conflict. We also have leaflets on effective communication, and also leaflets on dealing with difficult phone calls. So just to be aware of those leaflets are available on our CSEAS website. So I'm going to talk here now a bit about personality types. Certain personality types increase your susceptibility to stress more than others. And also they can be beneficial. And two examples here are the perfectionist. Being a perfectionist can bring you much practical success, but the intense emotional effort that goes into maintaining it and sustaining it can be exhausting. Also with the helper, a helper can be a very kind and compassionate person, but they can get very stressed if their own needs are not being met, and if they're busy helping other people and not taking care of themselves. Okay. If you want to know more about personality types, our booklet on understanding stress talks about this in a lot more detail. And these are just examples of two. There's a number of different personality types, and you may be interested in learning a little bit more about that. Now, as you can see here, we have the kitten, and he's looking in the mirror and he sees himself as a lion. Okay. So we're talking here about perceptions. Okay. And the lion's looking back and he sees himself as a kitten. So what are we talking about? So we're talking here about self-esteem. And self-esteem is the way that we see or perceive ourselves. And I read recently where self-esteem is our armour against the challenges of life. When you hold yourself in high self-esteem, you can live comfortably with your strengths and weaknesses, because we accept and respect ourselves as we are. And these are some tips for healthy self-esteem. And before we look at those tips, it's important to remember that people with low self-esteem are more prone to depression and anxiety and stress than people with high self-esteem. Okay? And people with low self-esteem often see themselves as inferior to others. They focus on their shortcomings. They may blow their flaws out of proportion and ignore their strengths and achievements, and put themselves down and try hard at times to please others. Okay? Whereas you can see, here are tips for building self-esteem. Okay? Accept yourself. Avoid labels like I'm a failure, I'm no good, I'm useless. And focus on your strengths. Have realistic expectations about how you can improve. I know I'm never going to swim the English Channel, but I will do maybe 5 or 6 lengths in a pool. So having those realistic expectations, recognize your strengths and weaknesses, and be objective about situations. Don't blame yourself for a negative outcome without taking all the factors into account. And what we're talking about there, say you're part of a team, and the team doesn't fails to meet a particular deadline. You're not completely responsible for the team not meeting that deadline. You were part of that team. So just to bear that in mind. And also communicating assertively is very, very important, and we can learn that. That's a skill that we can learn.